The rumors keep rallying around wide receiver Deandre Hopkins. While I'm going to tell you is that the Cleveland Browns should be certainly interested in a veteran skill position player. However, it is not Deandre Hopkins. All this and more. Your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate all the legion of everydayers who now have Locked On Browns, over 6,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Join the everyday crowd. Make Locked On Browns your first listen. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Put your notifications on so when the content drops, you're there to absorb it. And of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Been here, 7th season of Cleveland Browns coverage, the highs, the lows, all the lunacy that makes you all love the Cleveland Browns. Been here. Now, year 7. Today's episode, we're going to focus in here on segment 1. Now, the rumors, again, are picking up as far as the Cleveland Browns and possible interest and maybe a possible reuniting of Deshaun Watson's former number 1 wide receiver, Deandre Hopkins, who is currently a free agent. Now, the realities of some of this, yes, there was success between Deshaun Watson and Deandre Hopkins. There's no question. There's a relationship that goes back between the two of them even further than Houston, obviously back to Clemson University, where both starred for the Tigers. However, these players have not played together since 2019. We are now 4 seasons removed of Deshaun Watson having an NFL relationship with DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not saying both players are not close. I'm not saying they don't still maintain a relationship. DeAndre Hopkins went on to Arizona, starred there. The numbers in Arizona have declined over the last few years, has missed almost half the season in 2022, half the season in 2021. In 2022, 11.2 yards per catch, matching his career low. Again, DeAndre Hopkins is now 31 years old, just recently turned 31. For a skill player, that is not a good number in any way whatsoever. You've seen, we've talked in the past, there is not a lot of success, not a lot of monster years at wide receivers at the age of 31 or higher. There is also the, Hopkins having the suspension for using a PED, which is never a good look for anyone, because if you're doubting yourself, you're doubting your own abilities by taking those things. What does that tell everybody else? Why should everybody else have a lot of faith in you as a player when you're already losing your faith in yourself? The other issue is, and we're going to get to this when I switch over to Dalvin Cook, if you didn't know where we were going with this, is the Browns have now assembled this wide receiver room. Brought in 3 more guys into the fold. Obviously, Amari Cooper, obviously Donovan Peoples-Jones, both had solid seasons for the Cleveland Browns last year. Amari in his first year, Donovan Peoples-Jones, a breakout year in year 3 in a very difficult situation where the first 11 games you played with Jacoby Brissett, a new quarterback to you. The last 6 games you played with Deshaun Watson, again, a new quarterback to you. And you saw solid growth from Donovan Peoples-Jones. You have a big decision to make here on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Year 4 of his rookie deal. Cleveland Browns, it's time to start wondering about whether or not there is a future between Donovan Peoples-Jones and the Cleveland Browns going further. Bringing in DeAndre Hopkins and having to find him 120 targets clouds that. It very much clouds that, because you think about the guys who are probably going to lose reps or going to lose opportunities. Everybody, first off, is going to lose opportunities. Everybody is going to lose targets. But the biggest in my opinion, one who is going to get hurt here would be Donovan Peoples-Jones. And it puts the Browns in a really, real difficult position with a player. And we've talked about all the wide receivers they drafted. Let's be honest, Donovan Peoples-Jones is the only one that has hit to this point. So I'm sure the Browns are very, very interested in making this relationship go further. So why would they basically roadblock that and the growth and development of Donovan Peoples-Jones by bringing in a player who maybe can give them one more year? 120 targets. You figure that's what you're looking for DeAndre Hopkins. You figure that's what DeAndre Hopkins is looking for. So everybody is going to get hurt there. You just made the move for Elijah Moore. And in a perfect world, wherever DeAndre Hopkins goes this season, and Elijah Moore, and I've been on record that I think Elijah Moore will lead the Cleveland Browns in receptions in 2023. So now, again, you made this move for Elijah Moore, and you now are basically going to roadblock that move to try to bring in DeAndre Hopkins. Again, does not make any sense. You get past that, the second-year player in David Bell, the rookie in Cedric Tillman. Marquise Goodwin most likely would not end up on the Browns' final roster if this move was made. So you have all of those factors, and now we switch to the free agent that they should be targeting. Dalvin Cook just recently turned 28 years old. Will turn 28 years old. 3 full years younger than DeAndre Hopkins. 3 full years. Has a relationship with Coach Kevin Stefanski. Last season, 4.4 yards per carry, 39 receptions. Better than Kareem Hunt was last year for the Cleveland Browns. Looked better on tape than Kareem Hunt did last year for the Cleveland Browns. Still at an age where you think there is something there. I know a lot of people have brought up the finances. I think Dalvin Cook is going to go for a lot cheaper than people think he is going to go for. So, again, another reason why you should be looking at Dalvin Cook as an option here for the Cleveland Browns and not necessarily DeAndre Hopkins. Now, 150 touches. Could I find 150 touches for Dalvin Cook as opposed to finding a way to create 120 targets for DeAndre Hopkins? Yes. If the Browns are going to be a winning franchise, there's going to be a lot of running to close out games. If the game is in hand, I'm not necessarily going to waste Nick Chubb. I'm not going to give Nick Chubb 300 carries this year in the regular season, because if the plan is to be an effective team in January and possibly in February, what is Nick Chubb going to have left in the tank if the Browns push him to 350 touches, 300 carries, maybe 50 receptions? I still think the Browns are going to use Nick Chubb a little bit more in the passing game than they have in the past. It's going to reduce the amount of hits he takes while still getting the return of a player like that. But Dalvin Cook at 3 years younger, and I know a lot of people, he won't come to Cleveland. Well, Zadarius Smith came to Cleveland. Well, Dalvin Tomlinson came to Cleveland. Well, Juan Thornhill came to Cleveland. We need to stop using the phrase, they're not going to come to Cleveland. Yes, Florida is maybe more of an allure to Dalvin Cook, but professionally and as far as a system that he has played in and excelled in, teammates that he is familiar with, it is all here in Berea and with the Cleveland Browns. Dalvin Cook should be the veteran free agent skill player the Cleveland Browns are targeting, not DeAndre Hopkins. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to get to a little bit of the rankings of the Browns skill players here within the division, and then a flow into segment 3, because we're going to have a big one here in segment 3, because the Cleveland Browns need to find a way to score more points going into the 2023 season if they expect to compete at the level that I certainly think they will compete at. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. There, it's $200. You can be spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day, whether it's on YouTube, and become more like the everydayers. And the best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, notifications on, and Locked On Browns is always available and always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, as we continue on here, now we're talking about overall rankings of some of the Browns' skill players within the AFC North, because I'm still getting a lot of talk. I still get a lot of feedback on social media that the Browns team is just not that good. And I hate to break it to you, but I disagree with you. And a lot of that does come from fan bases, obviously the Bengals fan base, obviously the Ravens fan base, obviously the Steeler fan base. And, we know how it goes down there for Pittsburgh fans. But when you talk about who is the best running back in the AFC North, and this is, for me, it's just not the AFC North. It's the AFC. It might be the entire NFL. Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is by far and away, the best running back in the AFC North. He has been consistent since the day he was named a starter in his rookie season, which we all know waited way too long to happen. But Nick Chubb has basically been the best in show in this division since the day he took over the starting running back job for the Cleveland Browns. Career average of 5 yards per carry. It's insanity. It is absolutely an insane number to think about when you're talking about a player who has been through 5 seasons in the NFL to this point. Nick Chubb is just that good. Nick Chubb is just that legit. Again, I do believe this year we're going to see a little bit of a different version here of Nick Chubb. Again, the Browns are going to switch it up here. They're going to throw the ball. I don't want to say a lot more. They're definitely going to throw the ball more than we've been accustomed to over the last couple of years. Of course, Deshaun Watson factors in greatly into that, the work that they have done to upgrade the wide receiver room. A tight end brought in, the emergence of a player like David Njoku, who just seems to get better each and every season. But Nick Chubb, it's going to be a little bit more involvement here in the passing game. It's going to be a way to get him a little bit of a rest, a way to take away some of the hits he's going to take and still get some of the return that Nick Chubb can give you with the ball in his hands. Now we go to the wide receivers in the AFC North. And as far as the Baltimore Ravens are concerned, I don't disagree with the wide receiver room they've created. But the problem is you have Rashad Bateman, who looks like a burgeoning star, I should say. You have Zay Flowers, who looks like a nice selection. But the talk of that wide receiver room is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. And for me, the talk of that wide receiver room should be the 2 young kids who should develop into solid players here. Bateman, if he can stay on the field, he's had his injury issues, certainly held him back a little bit as far as getting the overall Rashad Bateman effect. Zay Flowers is a very, very skilled young man, and I think he's a player that could be a better pro than he was in college. Once he's going to be with the Baltimore Ravens, a team that's obviously going to score a lot of points, obviously have a lot more opportunities, a lot more snaps than he did while he was at Boston College. So that makes that difficult. Pittsburgh Steelers, there is not a wide receiver on that roster that is better than Amari Cooper, so we're going to skip right on over that. Now we get to the Cincinnati Bengals, and you talk about Jamar Chase, you talk about T. Higgins. The best wide receiver in the AFC North is Jamar Chase. That is a clear and cut discussion. There is no debate. There is no nothing else to talk about. Is who maybe is the second best wide receiver in the AFC North. And I don't want to say necessarily that it is Amari Cooper. If you want to say T. Higgins might be better than Amari Cooper at this point of his career, a little bit younger, I don't know if I can necessarily argue that. But Amari Cooper is at least the third best wide receiver in the AFC North. You saw it last year in what was a difficult year. Remember, it started a little slow. Carolina wasn't that promising. Then he and Jacoby Brissett found their way, found their relationship, found their footing. And Amari Cooper was able to put up numbers that were commensurate with what we've expected from Amari Cooper. Over 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. This year, it is 17 games of Deshaun Watson. It is 17 games of Deshaun Watson with an offense that is going to focus more on throwing the football. It's not like they are going to ignore Nick Chubb, but you got to keep in mind, in years past, they tried to satisfy 3 running backs, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnson. That's not going to be the case now. The case now is going to be try to satisfy Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. It's going to be able to try to satisfy Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, and then you have Nick Chubb, who you're going to try to work, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 20 touches. And weeks where you are ahead and hopefully ahead early, it could be a week where Nick Chubb only sees 15 touches because by the fourth quarter, Nick Chubb is chilling on the sidelines, with a Coke and a smile, if you know what I'm saying. So now we get to the tight end position. And again, the Baltimore Ravens, this is undisputed. The best tight end in the AFC North is Mark Andrews. There's no way around it. He's the best in show. He has been the best in show. He will continue to be the best in show. I've seen some tight end rankings, and this is always popular this time of year, when we're, trying to create content and obviously satisfy our editors, satisfy our bosses, but basically not a lot of new news to create said content. So what do you get? You get positional rankings. You get all these types of things, coach rankings like we did, with Coach Stefanski. But now here, as far as we said, Mark Andrews, top tight end in the AFC North. I won't dispute it. I won't argue it. Now, there's a lot of people ready to say that Pat Freiermuth is the number 2 tight end in the AFC North. My thing on that is well, let's have a little bit more longevity to it. David Njoku was on a 1,000-yard pace last year when injuries started to slow him down. Obviously, some severe weather games late in the season certainly hampered the passing game for the Cleveland Browns. But David Njoku, and at the time when the Browns gave him this long-term contract extension that they did, there was a lot of, disbelief. There was a lot of thinking that the Browns had overpaid for a player like David Njoku. And at the tight end position in the NFL, there is Travis Kelce, and then there is everybody else fighting it out. But for David Njoku, he is a top tight end in the NFL. I have no questions about that. The question is he as high as top 5? Maybe. On some weeks, he's right there knocking on that door. And if it were just David Njoku, and maybe it's not as many wide receivers here, David Njoku would be a guy that you probably could pencil in for 80 and 1,100. 9 touchdowns. That is the ability of David Njoku. That is the ceiling of David Njoku. The problem is now the Browns are smattered with skill players everywhere. A loaded wide receiver room goes 6 deep easily, all of which that can find ways to contribute. You still have Harrison Bryant. You still have Jordan Akins that you brought into this tight end room. But David Njoku is either the second or third, in my opinion, the second best tight end in the NFL. Is a situation where linebackers can't run with him and safeties just aren't as big as him. They can't tackle him. He's a true mismatched nightmare, for an opposing defense. You don't necessarily have players that can match up with David Njoku. Again, he's too athletic for the linebackers, and he's just too big and physically gifted as an athlete to, be bottled up by safeties. All of this gave the opportunity for the Browns to be able to get a lot of yards, score a lot of points, and we will get to that in segment 3 here. But you look at the skill position players here. You have the best running back in the AFC North. You probably have, in argument's sake, the second best wide receiver in the AFC North. You have probably the second best tight end in the AFC North. The Browns have a very, very well-built roster on the offensive side of the ball and at the skill positions, all of which should lead to Deshaun Watson here in year 2 with all of this stuff behind him, getting full OTAs, getting full training camp, hoping to turn this franchise into legit Super Bowl contenders, which is exactly the reason you hand the man $230 million guaranteed. We're going to continue here. We will get to segment 3. The Browns are going to need to find a way to score a lot more points in 2023. We'll talk about those numbers as we continue here. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Welcome, everybody, back. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns. Appreciate all the everydayers who make Locked On Browns their first listen. The Legion is strong as we are now over 6,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Jump in the pool, join the club, make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. And the easiest way to do that is to make sure you have your notifications on and you are subscribed to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Audio-wise, Locked On Browns, always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Now, as I said, leading up to this, obviously segment 1, we talked about the free agent the Browns should be chasing. And the reason I harped on the skill players that the Browns have in relationship to their rankings in the AFC North is the Cleveland Browns last year averaged 21.2 points per ball game. Where does that sound? Where does that stand? Is that good? It's top 15 in the NFL. Top 2 scoring teams in the NFL last season, coincidentally enough, both went to the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs averaged 29.2 points per game. The Philadelphia Eagles right behind them with 29.1 points per game. Now, if you look at this, the Browns are a full 8 points behind the Kansas City Chiefs in scoring. So if you want to figure it out, you got to figure the Browns got to find a way to score 2 more points per quarter. Obviously, one way to do that, more efficient kicking game. Obviously, more success, higher success rate on your field goal attempts. Obviously, running more plays, having the ball more often than you did when you were getting gashed last year by opposing teams' run games, which hopefully Dalvin Tomlinson will correct. Hopefully, Jordan Elliott, this is the year. Perion Winfrey, look, you're definitely doing that media, I'm ready to go type of social media thing where you're getting everybody pumped. We'll see soon enough, Perion Winfrey, and we all hope it's going to be the case. Obviously, there's no question about that. But you look at it now commensurate to your AFC North brethren. Cincinnati Bengals, 25.7 points per game last year. Ironically enough, the Browns were second in the AFC North last year in points scored, 21.2. Coming in at almost a whole point behind the Browns, Baltimore Ravens scored 20.4 points last season. Pittsburgh Steelers, 18.1 points per game. So if you want to talk about competing first and foremost, and look, this is the thing. If everybody wants to talk about, the Browns and, longevity and a lengthy run in the playoffs, possibly a Super Bowl opportunity, your first goal is simple. Your first goal is winning the AFC North. So ideally, the Browns need to find a way to score 4.5 points more per game to compete with the Cincinnati Bengals. Could there be regression from the Cincinnati Bengals and maybe that number comes down a little bit? It's possible. It's certainly possible. Is it slim? It's probably slim. Joe Burrow's pretty dang good. Jamar Chase, obviously. T. Higgins, of course. We'll see what comes with the running game. I do have my questions about their defense, which may in turn, as I'm saying here earlier, may keep the Bengals offense off the field a little bit more if their defense is not able to replace those two safeties with adequate play and quickly. So with Deshaun Watson, with Nick Chubb, with Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. This needs to be an offense that finds a way to consistently score more points. You want to figure, a touchdown per quarter. Obviously, that's a round number because everything is not round. So you would need to find a way probably to score, 6.5 points per quarter, which is going to get you to up to the 26. The 26 points per game mark, which would put you ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously would put you ahead against everybody in your division. Baltimore, obviously, I think that total is going to go up in 2023 with more Lamar Jackson on the field. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 18.1. I really believe that number can only go up, although until we truly see what Kenny Pickett can be, we have our concerns about what the Pittsburgh Steelers can possibly do in 2023. So again, now it is 8 points. It is 8 points that the Browns would need per game to get that average to jump up to the level of the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, again, the Christmas Eve game, obviously in the cold against the New Orleans Saints, brutal game weather-wise. There was another game with the same thing where the weather was just absolutely terrible for the Browns. But, these aren't excuses. Everybody plays in these types of things. But getting Deshaun Watson back, getting Deshaun Watson comfortable here in 2023, getting Deshaun Watson in the mindset of 17 games. Last time Deshaun Watson even played that many football games is in 2020. So we're talking 3 seasons. But Deshaun Watson, the work has been put in. You are tinkering the offense to suit it more and more to Deshaun Watson. You have made great strides in improving the overall weapons around him. Look, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones was a solid group, but you took the number 43 pick, traded it to the New York Jets, got another pick back, turned the number 43 pick into Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. It got you an absolute offensive weapon, a guy that you're going to line up anywhere. And we're already starting to see the Browns do that just in OTAs. They are literally like a kid on Christmas with their favorite toy. Well, what can we do with Elijah Moore next? What else can Elijah Moore do? And the Browns are going to find a way to get the ball in his hands a ton and very often, because Elijah Moore's got home run hitting ability, even if it's on short to intermediate routes, even if it's coming out of the backfield. He's got the juice. He's got the burst. He's got the overall breakaway speed at 4.34, a player that was disgruntled in his time with the New York Jets. And the Jets finally, once Aaron Rodgers, it became a realization that he was coming. The Jets had to make some moves to open up the space to bring in, obviously, some of the arsenal that Aaron Rodgers was going to bring with him to New York. The Browns jumped on it, got a great player, still young, high-performing talent. And I tell you guys all the time, if you ever want to see the best of Elijah Moore and the abilities of Elijah Moore, go back to his final season at Ole Miss and watch him play the Alabama Crimson Tide and watch all those drafted Alabama defensive backs have no answer. And nothing they could do could stop Elijah Moore that day. Everybody in the building knew the ball was going to Elijah Moore, and yet it still happened over and over again. There was nothing the Crimson Tide defense could do about it. Now, I talk about Dalvin Cook, and I know everybody, Jerome Ford can still get an opportunity to prove himself down the road for the Browns. But if you want to make this a little bit easier here for 2023, if you want to find a way to get more points on the board, which the Browns are so desperately going to need to do, Why not? And again, for Jerome Ford, it's a question of he's an unknown commodity. It's no disrespect to Jerome Ford. It was only 8 carries last year. That is what it is. But Dalvin Cook is 100% a proven commodity in the NFL. Many seasons over 1,000 yards. A reception total in his career as high as over 50 in one of his seasons. This is a guy that can contribute as a two-way player. Even if some people are saying, oh, well, he may have lost a step. Well, he's coming to play with the best offensive line in the NFL. So if you think he lost a step, he's going to gain that half a step back because he's now playing behind a team that's going to provide wide open holes for him to just vacuum up yardage. This would be a big contributor in helping the Cleveland Browns find a way to get those 2 more points per quarter to separate the gap between themselves and the best team in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, who put up 29.2 points per game last year. This is essential. This is critical. Obviously, the Browns also on defense, and we can get to this. The Browns need to get the points they gave up last year down, but 21.2 is not going to cut it. It's just not enough in today's NFL. You kind of almost need to be to that 26 point per game margin. You look at those teams and you look at the teams who score that many amount of points. Those teams are playoff teams. The Browns desperately, and I mean desperately, need to find a way to get more points on the board. Today we have covered the Browns are chasing after, in my opinion, even if they are chasing after, obviously nothing confirmed to this point, the wrong veteran free agent. Yes, a 31-year-old wide receiver who may be a Hall of Famer one day is an interesting option, but a 28-year-old running back who has familiarity with the head coach, the system, has former teammates who are here with the Browns now, and a lightened load of 150 touches. You can get the absolute best out of Dalvin Cook and still find a way to bring that into the team, as opposed to trying to find a way to create 120 targets for Deandre Hopkins in a wide receiver room. I wouldn't say it's crowded because you have young players developing, but there is a big crowd already in that wide receiver room, and trying to find a way to get 120 targets to DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, just isn't going to work. The Browns possess the top running back in the AFC North, the second best wide receiver in the AFC North, and most likely the second best tight end in the AFC North. That is a reason to believe that this team will play better in 2023. The Cleveland Browns only scored 21.2 points per game last year. The Kansas City Chiefs scored 29.2. The Cleveland Browns need to find a way to score 2 points more per quarter, 8 points more per game in 2023 if they want to be mentioned and if they want to have a chance to compete deep in the playoffs for possible an AFC championship game, and most certainly possibly for a Super Bowl, as the Chiefs were first in the league at 29.2. Philadelphia Eagles were second at 29.1. I am Jeff Lloyd, host here at Locked On Browns. Make sure you're following at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. At Locked On Browns is the Twitter handle. Make sure you throw a follow over there. I appreciate all the everydayers who make Locked On Browns their first listen. The Legion is strong. Like I said, I appreciate you all. Over 6,000 subscribers now. All the new traffic coming through. I suggest you sit down, you stay a while, and the best way to do that is subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Have your notifications on so when the content drops, you guys are all there to consume it. Locked On Browns is always free, always available wherever you get your audio podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.